You're all set, Tracy.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the January 20th, 2022 meeting of the Recreation Advisory Committee, and we're fully remote tonight. Joan will be joining late because of CPC, and Chad had a conflict, and Evan isn't feeling well. So we'll get going, and I don't know about Carolyn Morgan, but we've got our four, so off we go. And I'll just do a quick roll call to make sure that everyone can hear and be heard. Tracy Murphy, and then Ann.
Hello.
Sharon.
Here.
Kyle.
Here.
Meth.
Here.
Alan.
Here.
Okay, terrific. So the first order of business is public speak. Mia, is there anyone for public speak?
There is not.
Okay, and so moving on, the minutes for the December 16th meeting were sent out last week. I'll look for a motion to approve. Ann?
And to approve the minutes.
Thank you, and a second?
Second the motion.
Okay. It occurs to me we don't have our secretary. Ann, are you in a position to take notes until Joan gets here?
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So that first one was your motion and Sharon's second. Okay, and a roll call to approve the minutes. Tracy Murphy, aye. Ann?
Aye.
Sharon? And Kyle.
Aye.
Okay, terrific.
Tracy.
And then yes.
Tracy,
Yes, Alan?
I would like to just point out one thing in the minutes from the last month. And that is, I think it may be a typo error, but it said that on some votes, there was a 7-to-1 vote, which would make 8 voters. I don't think you can do, I think you have 7 voters, 2 alternates, so that if one of the 7 is not present, one of the alternates steps in. So I think the official vote should be 6-to-1, not 7-to-1.
Okay, thank you, Alan. That's right. So let's, with that correction then, which I'll note, I'll look for a motion to approve with that correction.
Motion to approve with the correction.
Thank you, Sharon, in a second. Thank you, Ann. And Tracy Murphy, aye. Ann?
Aye.
Sharon? And Kyle?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on then to the Recreation Director's report. Alan, we'll give you the floor.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to start with winter programming, just to give you a heads up. So basketball is in full swing. We have our 3 levels, the K through 12 instructional program on Saturdays, the 3rd and 4th grade boys and girls practice on Saturdays. The girls play on Mondays, the boys practice on Saturdays and play on Wednesdays. Like any other program, we are dealing with a COVID issue every now and then. We do follow the protocols. We do follow the protocols in the gym in terms of requiring masks so that everybody that comes in, spectators and players, wear masks. We have 2 5th and 6th grade girls teams. We have 2 5th and 6th grade boys teams. We have 1 3rd and 4th grade girls and 1 3rd and 4th grade boys. That season runs until March 2nd, I believe. Numbers are very good for Orleans. In the boys, 5th and 6th, there's boy, I'm drawing a major blank, but there's 2 teams with about 8 or 9 kids each, so roughly 18 kids. And in the girls, it's roughly the same. Each team has about 9 players on their team, so numbers are really good, very encouraging. The Morning Fit program continues to run Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday mornings. We have been able to work it out with DPW that in days of inclement weather, with the exception of like early morning snow, that if the group can't exercise outside, which they actually want to do outside, they can go into the DPW garage and run their class in there. So we can just close the garage doors, all the employees get their trucks out, and we can run our classes in there. And that's got about a 22, 23 person enrollment in the winter classes that are going on right now. I just finished a running 101 program that is basically covering some fundamentals of running, stretching, just teaching people some of the fundamentals to wanting to improve their running. Enough so that I will continue a new program probably in March because I believe we'll have that interest from the people that were in it and some more. We are having 2 ice skating sessions coming up. We have one this coming Saturday from 5 to 6 at the rink. We have another one coming up February vacation, which is the week of the 20th to the 25th of February. We're running a 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. skate on Thursday of that week. We're going to be running a basketball. I take that back. It's not going to be basketball. It's going to be a sports fundamentals camp during February vacation for 3rd through 6th grade boys and girls in the morning at the elementary school on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of that week. I'm working with some folks on having some type of indoor soccer program. It may be a Saturday morning program, which would run through the middle of March with the possibility of a February vacation soccer instructional program as well. Nothing is finalized on that at this point. That's the winter. Just kind of looking forward to spring. I do have dates for junior tennis instruction, for middle school tennis instruction, and for adult tennis instruction. In April, planning a baseball instructional camp during April vacation. And obviously the typical things that we do run is T-ball for boys and girls grades K through 2, softball for girls in grades 3 through 6. And my interest is in pursuing a cross-country program for school-aged kids, instructional program in cross-country. Oh, and if as far as budgetary issues at this point from the last month, there was a $420 deposit into the revolving fund, which was $240 from adult registration and $180 from youth basketball registration. The only expense has been instructors at this point since the last meeting.
Hi, Carol. Okay, questions for Alan? Sharon.
So I just had a question about the ball skills class for K through 2. And I was wondering how come registration closed on December 13th for that? I would think that that's something that would stay open the whole time that that program's running.
We get to a point, Sharon, with COVID and with the size of the elementary school gym that we have a maximum amount of people that we can actually have in a gym at one time.
Does that, the ball skills is happening at the elementary gym,
That's
not
correct.
the middle school?
That's correct.
Okay, because I mean, it's one of those things that's still on the website, which suggests that it didn't fill up, but it says registration closed December 13th. Because whenever something fills up, it disappears from the MyRec website.
Again, that's the reason. The chairman of the committee had asked me back in, I don't know the date, but the chairman of the rec advisory committee had asked me to put in a registration is closed, which is what I did.
Okay,
Wait,
but it,
is that me?
Yes,
I asked to put in registration is closed?
you said that, could I put in a thing when people go onto the website
Oh,
looking for a program, if it could say registration is closed?
okay. I think what I was getting at was more just that other towns, when a program is running, it stays on the website. And even if the program has filled up, the listing is still there, which I think, so that if you visit the MyRec website, you have a really nice sense of what's happening at that point.
Right.
That was more what I was going, that was more the aim, that if something fills, rather than just have it disappear, that the listing would stay, and maybe if someone wanted to follow up with you to see if an exception could be made, or if they want to plan next year. Is that still a possibility? Because the MyRec website now, like girls 5 and 6 basketball is still up, but other basketball programs are not up. So is there a way to get to some consistent place where once a program is posted, it remains for the season? And if it fills because of COVID or whatever else, there's a notification that says, the class is full, but that it still stays up on the website?
That's I think like that's definitely a possibility to have that if you go on to that program, that's what it would say.
Okay, so can we check back at the February meeting?
Certainly.
Okay, Anne?
Seems like something is left unsaid. Is it when you're using the phrase registration is closed, are you saying the program is full?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think just for what it's worth, I would add that one of the nice things about rec over the years has been, in comparison to other sports activities that can be a little more regimented, that there's been a flexibility about rec. So if you have a kindergartner who's not sure about soccer, and then 2 weeks into the season they want to give it a try, that rec is something where you can show up and give something a try. So I think I would certainly support, especially for the younger grades, as soon as we can get away from COVID restrictions, keeping, if someone wants to sign up for ball skills and go to the last 2 weeks, I'm all for that. And maybe next year they sign up at the beginning. But I think that's just a nice thing that rec should be able to do, to just provide a little more flexibility to kids who change their minds and, sometimes take a little warming up to an idea, at least in my house. Okay, other questions for Alan? Sharon?
I just wanted to let you know, Alan, that when somebody registers for something, that right now the donation fund, the dates are incorrect. It's showing donations up through 2020. So the dates on the donation fund part of the website needs to be updated to reflect the current year.
I'll take a look at that in the morning for sure.
And then this is an aside from what you're currently offering, just something that I think Tracy and I have recently become aware of because we have kids at the high school level, that there's a real need for high school level intramural type sports, particularly in the winter time. If a kid isn't able to make the basketball team or isn't interested in playing scholastic sports, which go 6 days a week, 2 hours a night, there's nothing for them to do. So I was just wondering or thinking about the possibility of maybe you getting together with some of the other recreation directors in the surrounding towns, Brewster, Eastham, because there were like 100 kids that went out for basketball in the high school, and only 30 can make the team.
I will bring that up the next time we all gather. I know that, there's a possibility. I will bring it up and we can discuss it at our next gathering.
Perfect, thank you. Alan, just following up on a few things. The surveys, at the last meeting you talked about, or I think before the last meeting, I'd reached out and asked about some sort of open-ended question where people could offer suggestions for future, Evan talked about socks for softball, or, bringing in someone to do a clinic, that people who had suggestions, having done a rec program, could fill out a few quick questions on the survey, but then have a place to say, it would be great to have 2 practices a week instead of 1, or, so on and so forth. And I think at the last meeting, you weren't sure that was available on SurveyMonkey or Google. What's the Google one?
The one
Forms.
the one I use right now is SurveyMonkey, and that
So
does not give you that option unless
So
you buy.
Google, right. So Google Forms, as far as I can tell, you can do an open-ended question. So I guess this is I'm looking for feedback both from you and from the committee. When we talked, I think it was in April, about doing these surveys, we've gotten so much energy and so many ideas from that first big survey. And I think the appeal of these smaller surveys was something, a constant way to get feedback all through the year. Do we either, I guess our option, I would think, is either to see if Alan can switch to a format that allows for that sort of open response, or for the committee to take on the surveys. Because I don't think the yes or no questions are nice to see, and it's helpful to get that sort of feedback, but I think feedback that's really going to generate ideas and forward movement for this committee is going to be more in the form of open-ended questions. So Alan, I guess I'll throw it to you first. Is that something that?
Yeah, why don't I just look into Google or whatever it is,
Okay.
and see what options they have for a free survey,
Okay.
open-ended question.
Terrific. Okay. All right, that's it for me. Anything else? Okay, thank you, Alan.
You're welcome.
And then moving on to revolving fund discussion. We didn't dip very far into this at the last meeting, although it continues to come up. Tom Daly is still looking into whether or not payments can be held, or payments cannot be withdrawn, I guess, until after the July deadline. So I don't have an answer on that. He did get back to me though and say that there's no encumbering of funds. So we can't, or Alan can't in June make,
We
I don't
can't,
know.
can I just fill in?
Yes, please. Yep.
I mean, we can't encumber funds in June out of the revolving fund to pay people or equipment in July.
Right.
There's state reasons for that, and obviously those are state regulations and rules and regulations. The other thing is we cannot have people register in May and bill them in July.
Yeah.
Oh, Anne?
just raising my hand because I believe, Tracy, if I understood, you just said Tom didn't have an answer to that particular
Yeah.
question as
At
yet.
least I haven't received it. But Alan, you have received that answer?
Yes.
Okay. I'll follow up with Tom.
Can I clarify, because I think this is, when Kyle proposed this, it was a critical piece that would solve a recurring complaint. And that was that if you didn't, I believe it was Kyle who proposed it, it seemed insightful. If you don't actually submit the charge until the activity begins, then that sounds ethical, and then we'll avoid the awkward and just purely bureaucratic issue of having money at the end of the fiscal year instead of the beginning of the fiscal year. That was the issue. And Tom was going to research it and let Tracy know.
Sharon?
I could be misremembering, but I thought that when we went in front of the select board last May or June and brought this up to them, that John Kelly alluded to something like that that could be done, like writing a purchase order for a service that wasn't going to happen until after the fiscal year closed. So,
Right, but I think that's encumbering funds,
okay.
right? I think that's what we know now, that we can't, I think we now know that that's not an option. Hi, Joan. So just quickly, if Joan, are you ready to take notes? And yes.
Hi.
Yeah. I forgot that was my job. Yes, I could take.
Well,
notes.
I forgot it was your job too, but Anne has been helping out, but we'll let her off the hook.
I'm ready.
Thank you. So that's helpful information, and I will follow up with Tom tomorrow. And I guess that leads to the discussion that I wanted to have as we enter a new year, which is, is the revolving fund something that's going to work or not? And if there's a path to making it, if we're invested in having a revolving fund, what's the pathway forward so that it works? And if we're not, then we take it off the monthly agenda, and move forward that way. I think right now, for as long as there was an understanding when the committee was established, which was at the same time as the revolving fund, that we would see an expansion of programming because of the revolving fund, because of the fees going into the revolving fund. And in the 2.5 years since then, it's just been an exercise in frustration of trying to see whether or not that's happening, and offer suggestions, and deal with what happened last June. So I'm looking for committee feedback. We've been here before. I would love to find a way to, I see the value in the revolving fund. I would love to find a way to preserve it, but that, there have to be some changes so that it's functioning the way that it was intended to function. And I don't think we're there now. Thoughts? Kyle and then Meth, yep.
So I think I look at it in two ways. I think keeping the revolving fund is important because it sets aside money specifically for recreation. And losing that, we end up having people paying fees into the general fund. And we might be in a position where we have to fight to get it back if we find a way to use the fund to promote newer programs. So I'm in support of keeping the fund. I understand the committee's frustration over the original intent of the fund and how it's currently being implemented. One should apologize. I have a questionnaire form to Town Council Mike Ford sitting in my inbox, which I've been meaning to fill out to ask how can this be worded, if at all, differently to provide a different oversight structure to the fund. The way the statute which authorizes the fund is written, I'm not clear because I don't know municipal law well enough to understand, is it based on the town charter? Is it left up to the town administrator to designate who has control of that? Is there a way to write the warrant article in such a way that maybe the Board of Select gets the ability to weigh in on how that's spent or have additional oversight? I have said this time and again, is that I do fear losing the revolving fund because of its dedicated use for recreation. I do understand the back and forth frustration amongst the committee and the department and how the funds get used. And I think also town administration's desire to see the fund disappear altogether so that those fees go back into the general fund. So I guess my position is kind of two-pronged. It's one, I want to keep the fund in place because I can't predict the future of the department. I can't predict the future of how we might be able to rewrite a warrant article every year that reauthorizes this fund. But I know that if we don't continue to reauthorize it, we are put in a position where the funds go into the general fund and then we have to try and figure out a way to reauthorize it in the future. But I think the committee should at least explore ways to express, to put more oversight on the use of the funds. And maybe it's not with us based on our charge currently. But again, we're an advisory committee and can express our desire to see the fund used in particular ways to the Board of Select, who, if they choose to do so, can make those desires known to town administration, or help us, in figuring out ways to right what we think is a ship that's kind of off track. That's just my 2 cents. I do get the frustration. I neglected to mention this in our last meeting. I really appreciated the pushback that members of this committee made last week. They asked a lot of, I think, relevant questions about budget and those types of things. We tend to get into the weeds sometimes. And my position is I support the department. I want to see a robust recreation department. I don't take a position as who's in that department. And with our current charge, I think that's all that we really can do is say we support this kind of dream department or this achievable goal for the department and make those recommendations accordingly so that the people we advise hear it and can take it and either move it forward because they have the ability to move it forward, or work with us to put us in a position in which we can move it forward. And whether that's becoming an elected official through a recreation commission like some other towns do it, or figuring out how the charge works, a little bit above my pay grade in terms of my understanding. But it's really a fine line when you support the department versus, supporting the particulars of the department. And we, I think, should take a tack of looking at ways that we can make our advice louder and clearer, and giving more of it to the people that we do advise, so that they can run with it or support us in moving forward in a direction that we want to move forward in. Because I know that the committee is really interested in having more of a oversight type of role, or at least that's what the sense I'm gathering. But that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, I got to remind everybody that I speak just as one voice, and a lot of this discussion has not been done with the other select board members. And I think that there will be, hopefully in the budget process, an opportunity for a discussion with your committee and the select board about what we do with this revolving fund. To me, the important goal that has been around is growing the program. And I hope that we can start getting a better handle on what that program is. There's no way of really measuring what the program growth has been this year versus last year, or what it might be next year. And that, I think, is the information that is most needed. But at the very least, I think if the revolving fund is, if people decide that they would like to keep the revolving fund, I believe that from a budgeting point of view, you could allow the balance of that revolving fund to be returned to the general fund on June 30th. And then at the start of the next budget year on July 1st, have a line item in the budget that returns that exact same amount back into the revolving fund for the following year. That's just sort of an accounting step that I don't think would be difficult to do. I'm just really trying to spend less time talking about how we account for money and more time on what programming is out there that we need. How do we grow the program, and what kind of programs are needed, and what are we doing to grow the program? I think there's a variety of different ways, but I think that the commitment to grow the program is really strong. But that word "grow the program," it doesn't have any meaning quite yet, because you can't. There's no measurable that gets shown. And so I'll shut up. I think that we can get into this whole discussion about the revolving fund when we have our budget night.
Okay, Anne and then Joan.
The revolving fund has been a topic, but it is a concept. And I want to speak, and I know a lot of people watch this because they come up to me, they come up to my husband, and I would like to review why we're here. This committee was literally assigned the job of being a conduit of information. And the revolving fund became important to us because it was a tool to grow the program. People have talked about hearing about unmet needs. If you listen or look at our minutes, unmet needs are discussed every single session. They're documented, they're in surveys. The longing to do metrics and to do surveys better has been this committee's goal. The revolving fund has been a topic because we've seen it as perhaps something David Courier said in the very beginning at that famous May meeting when this committee was created. What about teeth? How will they, we know what advice we want to give. The town has told us what they want. We know the specifics of what a grown program looks like. You ask any one of us who has been here, and we will tell you chapter and verse exactly what's needed this winter, next summer, 5 years from now. It's there, it's in our minutes, we know it. We have tried to communicate. And quite frankly, I just have to talk about last month. It seemed an example of either our being irrelevant or are working for the town. I think the administrators need to understand they work for us. This is frustrating, and I'm going to finish by saying I support what Kyle said. We will not abandon the revolving fund because to claw it back will be terribly difficult. It will sit there because I, for one, want to abandon talking about it. I want it to continue to be recreation designated money. And I want to go on record that it has been an unpleasant, difficult time trying to do what the community asked us to do, to grow recreation, to convey and solicit information from the town. And every effort to do that has been obstructed. And this committee, I have great respect for the members of this committee and am impressed at no end at their calm, measured persistence and keeping the higher road when the low road has been an opportunity presented at almost every meeting. So there you go, I'm done.
Thank you, Anne. Joan?
I'm going to be somewhat controversial. I do think we know what our unmet
I
needs
wasn't.
are in the recreation department. I want to expand our scope and start using the money for where we can make an impact. We can work with Together We Can. We can work with the Senior Center. We can work on putting together things for CPC funds, and we can work with other organizations. I do feel like we are moving a big rock uphill. So if those funds are available to us to use to build bigger programs with some of these other groups that we can work together with, I would like to see us expand that way. I agree with Anne 100%. The minutes show all the unmet needs. You can run reports of how many people are on waiting lists, Smith. There's a way to get this pretty easily. So I say change our focus. Let's focus on things we can do. I'm really tired of banging my head against the wall. And there are partners that are willing to work with us. The police station's willing to work with us. They have outdoor hockey. I mean, there are programs we could support and they would want us as their willing partner. And I would like to work with people that want to be our willing partner and see if we can expand it. That's.
I think that, part of the challenge with the revolving fund is that's not, at least at this point, we don't have a say in how that is spent. So if we want it to be spent on intergenerational activities, as Joan, if we wanted to turn to these other partners and come to the, invite them to the table, and we have a funding source that's bringing in, 40 or 50,000 a year. We don't have that funding. So I guess that gets back to what Kyle was saying about talking about, more or different oversight on the revolving fund that would give us the flexibility to really direct those funds in a way that's benefiting the community. I think part of, and thank you all for speaking, because I agree with all of you. I think part of maybe what we're looking at, if we're trying to preserve something for the department and overlooking the situation that we're in right now, I think one thing that maybe we could address now is I felt, and I expressed this at the July meeting, that people who have been paying $30 a season or signing their kids up for, for the summer program for however much, the expectation is that that money is going into expanding and growing programming, and it's not, so I'm wondering if there's an answer that, like, do we think about reducing how much residents pay for that summer day program so that we're not dealing with this glut of money in June and then scrambling to find some way to spend it. So when my kids were little, that summer day program was free. Maybe that's a way to hold on to the revolving fund, but not have it be this big, big burden. Sharon?
I feel like conceptually, the idea of the revolving fund is great. But there has to be steps beyond the concept, right? When we supported the fees and then we supported reoccurring the revolving fund because it was supposed to go away that second year, the whole idea was that we were going to grow programs, and you can't grow programs without a plan. You can't expand, and we've made our suggestions. We've made lots of suggestions, but there never seems to be a plan. And it's not a surprise right now. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody when we get to the end of May and June, right? Because I think there's about maybe 5,000 some odd dollars in there right now. When we get to May or June, that we're going to have this big chunk of money. So, the thought for how that money should be spent should be happening right now, whether it's through the recommendations that we're making or ideas that Alan has. But it shouldn't hit us on June 9th that there's 14, 15, 16, whatever $1,000 sitting there that we're going to buy more basketballs and more duffel bags and more tennis balls and all of the supplies we need for swimming. Those things should be in the budget. Those are programs that have run in this town for as long as I've been here. So those should be budgeted items. We know what we need for swim supplies. We know what we need for basketball. We know what we need for first aid equipment or short life equipment, right? Those are the things that shouldn't be coming out of the revolving fund. And believe me, I would love very much for us not to have to talk about it all the time. But the thought that occurred to me when we're talking about oversight and being able to make decisions, perhaps, just perhaps, when we're talking about expanding our charge, we're talking about that community life position. We're talking about that other person who would be reaching out to these other programs. And the revolving fund would fall underneath that person so that we would then be able to have an impact with Nauset Together We Can, or, the OPD, or, programs at the library, or whatever, it is that places that we can naturally kind of grow because there's a roof over their head already. We're not scrambling and saying, oh, I don't have any place to go or work. These are already existing programs that I'm sure would be happy to have some extra funds to do more with what they have. They have a structure. Just a thought. I know we haven't talked about the community life position since last year, but perhaps that's the direction to go in order to bridge this gap and lack of planning.
And I think one of the things we were bumping up against with the community life position was where it goes. And with the understanding that if it went somewhere other than the rec department, the fees, the revolving fund doesn't move with it. So that's something to consider, but it's a wonderful idea so that the position is designated for growth and more community connections and collaboration, and the funding follows that position. Meph, what's the most efficient way for the committee to go about finding out what our options are in terms of having a voice in the oversight of the revolving fund?
I think right now it's going to be as part of the budget process.
Okay.
And I'll try to get a date for you that when the recreation part of the budget has its night. And where do we stand with the charge now? Has everybody in the committee gotten a copy of where we are with that charge?
No,
Because
but I mean, I
that's
can
also
send,
something that has to advance.
right.
So maybe it would be better if I tried to create a agenda space for these topics, sort of separate from the budget. But I think it's the right time of year to be talking about it right now.
If we were to have a role in oversight of the revolving fund, that would have to go into the revised charge, right?
Oh, yeah. And I'm
So
not
is it
sure,
worth
I'm not
figuring
even
that?
sure, I'm not sure that that's doable.
Right.
Because, I think if you were a commission, you might be able to do that. But I don't think, I'm not sure that any committees in town have that sort of, fiscal power. But I can ask that question. I will ask that question.
Yeah, I think what we would be looking for is whether the select board has a increased role of oversight, or our committee, or this new position. Do I have that right?
Well, yeah, because the charge that's sort of out there to be adopted, it gives a channel for your committee to approach the select board with specific recommendations at your will. And I think this is, the select board wouldn't want to get into specific of deciding what programs, get approved and whatnot. But I think if you got into a plan about, let's say, what is viewed as the needs in the spring program or in the summer program, in a bigger sense, I think that yes, the select board would be certainly happy to weigh in on that.
Alan, can I just ask, right now, as it currently stands with the revolving fund, who determines when something is paid for out of the revolving fund? Is that you determine? Is that Tom? Is that happening at town hall when you submit, when there's a bill to be paid for a referee? Are you making those decisions, or is someone else making those decisions?
If it's a revolving fund matter, I make the decision as to if I'm paying a vendor or a purchase of equipment and I want it to come out of the revolving fund. I put it through out of the revolving fund, out of an account number that's established for revolving fund matters, either services rendered or equipment purchased. But any bill that goes out of the revolving fund is approved by the town administrator. So if I submit a bill to pay a vendor, the town administrator approves it.
And how are you determining that this is getting paid for out of the budget and this is getting paid for out of the revolving fund?
That is my call to look at my budget, my accounts, and what account, whether it's revolving or whether it's general fund account, what I want to pay something out of. Example, the early morning fitness program that meets Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. The instructor is paid out of that. So that's when I pay that person, that money comes out of what those individuals have paid to participate in that class.
And do you have a sense approaching June of a plan so that we're not in the same situation as last year, or is that still to be determined?
It's still to be determined. I know that, with Tom, Nate, and whomever else would be involved in this, we are trying to come up with plans and a strategy so that we're not dealing with a huge bundle of money in June.
And would there be a reason to not consider either a free or really low cost summer day program? And I don't have committee feedback on that yet, so just throwing it out as a possibility. Would something like that resolve that challenge in June?
Unless the town gives us more money. I mean, if the town gives us, come July 1, we reduce the money in the revolving fund to $10,000. So that's, let's say, what we have. And if we're reducing the fees, then the money that we're paying for services out of that is not going down. For example, classes that we run, vendors that come in for the summer program, they're still going to charge us what they charge us. So we're reducing the fee. By reducing the fee, in my opinion, it's not financially feasible. As I mentioned a couple of meetings back, when we get into tennis, and I know the committee had asked for 6 weeks tennis for every human being in Orleans, and we're going to lose money on that. We're going to lose an absolute ton of money charging the fee that we currently charge if we're going to be running extra, simply because of the cost for the people to teach the programs.
Right, but you're not, I think that I'm not talking about money that comes in July and August for things like tennis. I'm saying that glut of money that I think last year, some of it was spent on like tennis balls and basketballs and duffel bags. Could that, instead of trying to figure out, how many hundreds of tennis balls do I need to buy in order to get this number down, could we just turn that back to families in Orleans and say, we understand that a lot of people depend on this day program and it's $5 a day, or it's, or whatever it is. Because I don't like, we just discussed at the beginning that you can't pay for the August yoga program in June, right? Like you can't use those funds, you have to spend it. You can't spend it on things that aren't happening then. So if we're trying to find, I guess what I'm proposing is, rather than trying to find ways to spend it, maybe we just don't take it all in and, cut families a little slack. And I'll pass it to you.
I want to translate what I just heard. This committee thinks the revolving fund is designed to help us grow the program. Alan thinks the revolving fund is when fees are collected, such as for the early morning exercise, those fees are spent on that particular program. It's been that way. That early morning exercise has existed for 28 years because people talk to me about longing for a venue and how glad they are to finally have the DPW. 28 years, 3 of which have had fees. But this is the conversation I would like us to abandon for maybe a year, because Alan does not agree, and he decides what he's going to submit as revolving fund or budget. And the administrators don't know what goes on in recreation, so they don't challenge it. They're going to just sign off on it. Alan has said before, if I get fees from kiddos on the soccer field, I feel I should spend those fees for kiddos on the soccer field. That's how he sees it. We see it differently. We disagree, and we're not going to agree by talking about it. So I would like to support the creative thinking as offered by Joan, and feel like there's something we can do, because otherwise we're going to spend once a month, Thursday evenings, doing this.
All right, thank you. Well said.
Tracy, can I just add something?
Mhm.
And this is just me listening to you guys, not on a specific agenda or a specific thing, but in documents that have been written. And your group has said one thing several times, and that is, we think that Brewster Recreation is the role model for recreation. And if that, and that's in a document sent to the select board. And if that is in fact the case, they have a revolving fund that charges way more than we do. We are certainly, fees are taken into consideration of, cost efficiency in Orleans, whereas other towns have more. And I just want to add one more point to this, and that was myself, Tom, Nate, we all have said over and over again that with additional staff, and obviously Brewster has that, as does everybody else, that with additional staff person who works for recreation, that gives us another 35 to 40 hours every week to do programming, to be able to increase programming and double up on coverages for programs, covering up on doing things new programs. And Tom and Nate came in last month and spoke on that behalf. And if I'm not mistaken, this committee supported that. And that is at least step one in what Tom and I and Nate feel. And I will not speak for anybody else, but we have all, this is what we need. And this is how programs are going to grow. And we've said this over and over and over again.
Kyle, and then
Kyle, can I have 20 seconds more? I agree.
I mean, but what's Brewster's Recreation Department budget is the request for FY22, from what I'm just briefly looking at from a Google search, is $195,000. Sorry, it's $205,000 for their entire department.
I'm not aware of the exact number.
But the point being though is I hate getting into the weeds about this stuff, but
I agree.
the revolving account was supposed to set us up in a position to show the town administration and the Board of Select and the voting members of this town that the recreation department budget should be grown because of the fees that we can generate and the programs we can spend with that money. What we're doing now with the revolving fund, which everyone is frustrated by, is we're using revolving fund monies to pay for budgeted items that in years past have always been in the budget. What we're frustrated by And what I continually hate to talk about is why are we paying for this item when it should have been in the budget? The point, I think, and from what I understood, the revolving fund to do was to grow the department, or at least do a proof of concept that the department deserves additional funding. And I support additional staffing funding. I support additional programming funding for all ages of participants. But what we haven't really seen is that come into reality. I said from day one, I support additional staff, more programming, longer hours, all of these things. And the revolving fund has not helped pay for any of that. And we have banged our heads against the wall saying this time and time again. And I think what the committee is saying right now, we're done getting into the weeds on this. It's time for us to take action. And the action that I think we need to take is to just constantly, every meeting, approve a motion saying to the Board of Select, we want to see this, we want to see that, and send 17 motions a meeting to the Board of Select saying, this is what we think the Recreation Department should be doing. And that's it. I mean, we've taken a vote of no confidence in the department director. We've tried to vent our frustration in our dealings with the department director to the Board of Select, and the town administrator said we can't do that except for in executive session with union rules, whatever. The frustration that this committee is banging up against is our desire to grow this department. And we have 7 members who are willing to assist in every way, shape, and form. And every time we have tried to do this, we've been met with resistance. We don't like volunteers. We don't need your help with surveys. I'll do it myself. I'll do it that way. I think the only survey that has given us any positive information whatsoever is the survey that we did 2 years ago. It was in depth. It gave us priorities from the community. The surveys that we've seen from your department have really said, did your kid feel safe? Were you happy with the program? Would you like to see it again? I mean, kids are signing up for it. People are signing up for it. They're paying for it. And, I think at the end of the day, the revolving fund should stay. I'm doing quick research. I will do the best I can to put it on my calendar to talk to Mike Ford about what's the best way forward with an appropriate revolving fund and oversight of it. It's just frustrating when you have 7, 8, 9 volunteers who want to help this department be the department that it can be, and it's really not getting us anywhere, and we're spinning our wheels. And I think that we should leave behind the nitty gritty of where money is spent and how it is spent, and we should just get on with making advice to the Board of Select and saying, this is what we think can be done. This is what we think should be done. This is how you do it. You guys take the reins until you change our charge, till you turn us into a commission, till you give us more authority. But we're not going away. We're not leaving. And we feel strongly enough about this issue that somebody's got to do something. And at the but that's all we can do. And I think, honestly, Tracy, this is my 2 cents. I think we should move on from this topic. I don't know that I could say it stronger than anybody else on this committee right now. I'm frustrated. I support this department.
Thank you, Kyle. We'll move on, but I'll let Meth sneak in a last thought.
Yeah, I just want to say, Kyle, and to the rest of the committee, I think in all fairness, the select board bears some of this responsibility for, the lack of progress with growing the program. Maybe this year that, that realization will be, accepted, because I think, just if you want to take your comments one step further, it could all be solved with just a budget, right? It just, whatever funding has been available in the past, if we commit more resources to that budget, then a lot of this goes away.
Joan.
I just have to say, Matt, I love working with you, and this team is great. This is not just about a budget. We had 9 willing volunteers, and we had police people willing to work for free. So we had a really big volunteer group that could have helped a lot of these efforts, Matt. A lot of it is budget, but a lot of it is not using the resources that are at your disposal that would be willing to have chipped in to get this stuff done. Last week, Evan, who is the calmest man on this group, he said, I can go open the gym. I mean, you know, we have coaches willing to do things. So one of it is, you know, what's the plan? Like Sharon said, how do you utilize who's at your staff until you get someone? Because that's not going to be approved till May. We're going to go through a whole other summer without having a second person in position. And we do want Alan to get another position. But what do you do in the meantime, Meth? You just don't say, well, it's money and money's going to make it better. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
That way.
Thank you, everyone. And so we will close it for now and then hopefully come back soon with more information or some progress. I posted a document listing our recommendations and priorities. That's pretty much in anticipation of getting time with the select board and wanting to pull together the unmet needs that we generated earlier. I think that was the August and early fall meetings. So just to quickly review, I listed everything. My thinking being that you know, the rec department, there might be things that are easier to happen now than later, and rather, you know, I don't want to get hung up on something. Just to throw everything at the wall, I guess, and see what sticks in terms of progress. So there are a lot of ideas. Certainly we won't, you know, we're not expecting all of them to show up this year, but just to give the select board and the recreation department a lot of ideas to pull from. The rest of the document goes on to talk about announcing programming through email blast, Facebook, the Council on Aging newsletter, Channel 18, and the School Blast, a master calendar, when programs should be announced so that people can plan in advance, and recommending that registration for programming for the summer be open to residents only for 10 days before being open to non-residents. The survey, we can hear from Alan at the next meeting whether he can move on and do an open-ended survey and start providing us with that information. But I think if not, that's something that the committee should just grab hold of, and we can start doing that survey. Preserving public record of metrics is something that we continue to you know, circle back to. And then actually, I think I printed out an old draft. And then I didn't know if we wanted to include anything else. So, so I'll look for edits or suggestions or a motion to move it forward to present to the select board. Anne?
I can't hear you, Ann. You're on mute.
Muted myself. I'm unmuted. I move that this list be moved forward to the select board, please.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Tracy Murphy, aye. Anne?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Kyle?
Aye.
Joan?
Aye.
Okay, terrific. I also included in the annual report that gets submitted to Town Hall. Thank you, Anne, for your help. Again, I'll look for edits or suggestions or a motion to go ahead and submit. Anne.
Ironically, I will have an edit that
Oh.
will come up, I think, when we discuss the community preservation projects.
Okay, so we can get to it then. Why don't we then just remind me if I forget to take a vote on it at that point. Okay, then moving right along, why don't we start then, Anne, with your update for CPC?
The kayak project has proceeded well, but we've had the realization of timing, and in the surrounding towns who have well-established kayak projects have told us their protocol, including people applying starting either in January or February. So we're met with the obligation to present fees for the rental of the berths on the kayak racks to town meeting, and Meth will help me with the process of doing that, or Nate or both. But with the recognition that that will not happen until May, the optimistic thought that we could order and roll out the project this spring is unrealistic.
So are we editing to say spring 23?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'll look for a motion then to approve the annual report, and then we'll get back into CPC.
Motion to
Joan?
approve. Motion to
Okay, a second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all in favor, Tracy Murphy, aye. Anne,
Aye.
Sharon,
Hi.
Kyle,
Hi.
Joan.
Aye.
Okay, great. And is that it for waterways and kayaks?
Yes.
Okay, any other CPC updates?
I have a
Joan?
couple of updates. All the bike racks have been put in. If you go down to the Mill Pond Walk, you'll see them. They're really cool, little black squiggly ones. So those are completed. I don't have an update on Storybook Trail. Morgan's not here. But something interesting came up at the CPC meeting. I'm just going to jump to a little side note, and Kyle was there. The members or owners of Oddfellows had said they're interested in discussing using the Oddfellows as part of the community center exploration. And it's a historic building, which is really a big
Wow.
possibility because you can get CPC funds for a historic building. They said they haven't been in touch. No one has reached out to them yet. So Kyle has the info, and I don't know, where it's going. Kevin was on the meeting though, so hopefully that'll all get hooked up. And if not, I'll send Fritz an email because Carol just gave me Fritz's email information.
Joan, just as a follow-up to that, with Oddfellows, when I started on some other board that I was on in 2016, I met with Paul Davies and our board met with him about Oddfellows. They definitely present with some significant challenges with their building, but it certainly has the potential, and he has a great vision for that building. In response to his comments and Kevin's comments in your email, I did reach out to Paul. I tried to connect him and Fritz together because it did come up at the last community center feasibility study meeting, the Oddfellows specifically, but just in general with the community center feasibility study task force, we're kind of in a holding pattern with RFQ process, but have begun to generate essentially what can we do in the interim, meaning can we interview organizations and buildings and programs in the community currently, and what kind of questions should we be uniformly asking to get a good generalized survey of what we can access to provide to whoever we end up hiring if we get that far. So,
Right.
but you've been heard. The Paul Davies was heard, and so was Kevin, and hopefully we can, at least get them involved.
And after you left, Kyle, the two people that were there from Chow, they're interested in talking about the community center also because they have some space that they would like to bring into the discussion. So it was just great. I mean, I just
Great.
think that's a positive way of everyone working together. So a little bit of good news there, I think.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Okay, anyone else have CPC or? Okay, so my CPC update, every time I think the master plan is just not going to happen, it comes back to life. So it came back to life again this week. after not having heard from the school committees or administration for a little while. I had a phone call from the chair of the regional school committee who said, they're really bogged down between the superintendent search and the principal search. And I think they're starting their budget stuff now too. But he wanted to offer his support, and he's going to write a letter of support, and his committee is going to provide a liaison for the project. So once I had that conversation, I still hadn't heard from the Orleans School Committee, so I went ahead and contacted a few people I know on that committee to talk about it. And I had good conversations and heard back this morning from the chair of that committee. And so I sent her a bunch of information that she's going to review. So it's enough. So sort of, we still have, I think, enough to keep rolling this project through, and again, always with the option to withdraw the project should we get to a place where there's any resistance from the school committees. But right now I'm not having resistance, I'm having a lot of support. So I think it's worth continuing to pursue. One of the people I spoke to was saying, that people are really looking at those properties right now, whether it's the fire station or the middle school thinking about a track, and thinking about the future. And I think if we want recreation spaces to have a place in those conversations, this is a good way, to make sure that recreation has a place in those conversations. The other benefit, I think, is that we have talked about the benefits of the partnerships that we've had through CPC and other conversations and initiatives in town, but we haven't established right now partnerships with the schools. So having a liaison from each school committee means that we have those partnerships, and moving forward, I think those lines of communication are going to help our committee pursue new ideas, and also really just keep a finger on the pulse of what the school's needs are and how we can support those. So again, it's still not what I thought, where I thought we might be this close to the CPC interview or presentation, but it's something, and it's a good something. So we'll keep going. We'll keep going until someone says stop, basically. And
can I just say, Tracy, you have manifest our concept of community center without walls by all this work of outreach. You are creating that network that one day the community center with walls can take advantage of, but good work.
Yes.
well, and I will throw it back to you because you're the one who came up with community center without walls, and now that's my go-to when I try and convince people to join our cause. Okay, so that's CPC. Putnam Farm Project, Rick came and spoke to us at the last meeting, and so I put this on the agenda in case the committee wanted to consider writing a letter of support, and then Carol was going to give us a quick update, so I'll pass it over to Carol. You're muted, Carol.
Okay, I think you can hear me now. Just very quickly, Rick did a great job when he introduced these Putnam and what's going on there to us before. And right now, quick update, they're up to 12 plots and as of today, and just a week ago there were only 5, and the total it will be 32 if once the site is completely developed out. And these plots are big. Recreation, passive recreation includes gardening, and these plots are big and allow the gardeners, or the farmers would be a better word, to sell their produce as a business. So we're actually supporting people in town who want to do that and sell things at the farmers market or other places. There's going to be restoration of an old well, that's part of their CPC application for this year, and they've been supported in their CPC application by the Ag Council and by Conservation, and the Water and Sewer Board was asked but deferred to both Conservation and the Ag Council. So even though we have not been involved and it's not our thing right now, I think for all the reasons that Stacy has said, that to have a place in future conversations about this big piece of property that's managed, the management plan comes from our Conservation Commission. It has recreation, passive recreation as an allowed use. I think along the lines of being in the place for future conversations, meeting unmet needs, and there's lots of gardeners on waiting lists at other community gardens in town. I think we should have a simple motion to approve and write a letter of support to them. I don't think it's needed to get the money from CPC, to be quite honest. I think Rick would agree with that, but I think it couldn't hurt, and it would be great for us to have a placeholder, because I think there could be future exciting uses, such as a perimeter walk with historical signage, such as some sort of.
Oops.
We lost you, Carol. Oh, we totally lost her. Oh, now she's back.
Are you muted, Carol?
I would love to say about a simple letter of support for the
Okay.
current development of garden plots.
Okay, Sharon. Oh,
I have a question, and you may not be able to answer this, Carol, but I was just thinking, if eventually there's going to be 32 plots, can recreation apply for one of those plots, and we could have a recreation garden club in the summertime?
I love that idea. I don't have the answer, but I believe Rick is on and could answer that for us.
I could text him.
I've been trying to bring him in, but he's not responding, so.
Cooking me.
Okay.
Want me to go? I can, hold on. I'll go ask him.
There he is.
oh, now we've got him.
Okay. You're
Hi,
muted.
Rick.
You're muted.
Oh, hi, Rick. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Great. So we're
wasn't
discussing
in
Putnam
your-
Farm. Oh, did you hear Sharon's question?
I heard everything.
Okay, so we'd love to hear a
Yeah.
response.
So the quick answer to that is that anything at this stage is possible. The only thing that has been decided is that Conservation Commission has approved a total now of 12 plots. They've been created and they're going to be allocated due time, probably in short order. The 32 plots that Carol referred to is the total potential that the property has. What happens to the next 20 plots is frankly kind of way off in the future. So from a planning standpoint and for an opportunity to weigh in standpoint, there is going to be plenty of time for that. But in order for the restoration to happen, we need water and we need power. And that is all that is being asked for with the current community preservation request. Power and water, which lets us expand. From there, the details are TBD.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Any other questions? Okay, then I will look for a motion to, for the rec committee to offer it. Well, I guess I'm making the motion. I'll make a motion that the rec committee supports Putnam Farms application to CPC, and we'll do so in the form of a letter.
Second.
Okay, Any discussion? Okay, then we'll move forward with a vote. Tracy Murphy, aye. Anne,
Aye.
Joan,
Aye.
Kyle,
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
Okay, great. And Rick, I'll probably reach out to you tomorrow, the next few days, just to, make sure I'm saying, getting details right in the letter, and then we'll go from there.
Whatever you need. Thank you all.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. All right, the last thing is future agenda items. I think some of us, this isn't news, but I was wanting to follow up on the public speak, talking about a basketball hoop at John Avalar, and then someone else had talked to me about the 4 acres of land behind that development. I reached out to John Meservey, who said that those are, it's all owned by the Housing Authority, and the 4 acres are currently landlocked. Conservation, there's a way to access that land through conservation, but a couple of years ago, Conscom didn't want or denied access to that land. So I haven't heard back yet from Housing Authority. I emailed, I think the week before last, but I do think, I keep thinking back to what Carol said a few months ago about wanting to make sure that recreation has a place in housing developments. And looking, as much as we focus on places in the center of town and close to the schools for easy access, doing smaller things spread out through town is also a really, important strategy. So that continues, but if anyone knows more than I do or has other ideas, please reach out and let me know. Joan?
So this is a crazy idea, but I sat through a CPC meeting that was broadly for Massachusetts, and a lot of towns are purchasing land, which you can do with CPC funds if it's for outdoor recreation. And they're purchasing it and then building outdoor recreation areas. And once again, let's broaden our thought. Why don't we look at the industrial area? The town owns 65 acres there. Industrial areas could be pretty hip areas to build something. And even if it's buying it from the town or refurbishing it from the town, but I think we have to go big. And whether the community building is there or not, maybe it doesn't matter, but we can go after big CPC funds for plots of land. And I think we have to start thinking that way, because these other lands are tough to get at, but there's 65 acres or some bigger number in that industrial.
Joe, could I ask just where is that located?
The industrial area where the DPW
Like,
is. Whole
got it, okay.
area. The town owns a lot of property there. And is there something we could go explore and make it a safe place that people could go?
I think we should put that on a future agenda item, because just having been on those power line trails back there, like the access for those communities of neighborhoods, those pockets of neighborhoods that can get there. Sorry, I'm speaking for South Orleans mainly, but I think that would be certainly something that would be worthwhile. The John Avalar Circle, I didn't know that there was additional acreage behind there. And we should probably figure out a way to talk with the Housing Authority, because I know Carolyn Witt has emailed me. She said she was going in front of the Housing Authority to talk about just a temporary basketball court, and had lined up a resident in the area that was going to monitor it. I don't know if I missed the meeting or it hasn't happened yet, but she has, I think she needs support from other folks. So I can reach out to her. I've been just neglectful, I think, or busy. I don't know what the best word is, but those 2 items I think are really crucial for, they're great ideas, period.
And Kyle, I'm happy to reach out to her because we have you already on Mike Ford, I think, just to ease your burden.
I'll forward the email to you, Tracy, so you can look at it. And then
Okay.
I have some ideas for the Mike Ford issue that maybe I can get on our next agenda. I just emailed a document for the committee to try and review. There are apparently 2 different types of revolving funds. One that carries over a balance year to year versus the the cutoff of 10,000. I just while we're in the meeting reading, I need to spend more time with it, but I will try and get those questions to Mike. If anybody has anything specific, please email it to me and I'll put it in the document. But I think that's something we should probably I should be more aggressive about, so.
Okay, well, but I'm saying, we all have limited bandwidth, so you do that and I will follow up with Carolyn. She did come to public speak, but it may have been a meeting that you weren't able to attend. And did you have something for future agendas?
You're on mute, Ann.
Oh, you're muted still.
Again. Could we call the future agenda item, one of them, Go Big? And then we can brainstorm and fill in some of these ideas and maybe generate some more. And then pick some to really pursue. Good.
Yes, I think that sounds like a really positive way to move forward. I will get you a charge update before the next meeting and hopefully we can discuss it at that meeting. And then, we'll keep going back to that community coordinator position, but we can see, nothing has happened that I know of since May or June. But I think the budget presents an opportunity to get the ball rolling again.
The
Joan?
next meeting, I hate to even say this, but do you think we have to discuss the upcoming select board meeting? Or do you think we'll have a date on the select board agenda before our next meeting?
Oh, I don't think we'll have a date on, I would be surprised if it happens before the next meeting.
So then
If
maybe
it-
part of our meeting should be discussing with MEF sort of the plan for the meeting, the agenda items, what we could speak about, the whole presentation of it.
If by chance, the opportunity comes before the next meeting, I have that document and I have a, clear understanding of where people stand with the revolving fund and the position. But my guess is it's probably going to be after our next meeting. And I will let you all know when I get that place on the agenda. Okay, thank you all. I'm very, very grateful for all of you. I think, you all are, this has been just a great group to work with and continues to be, and it's stressful, but everyone keeps showing up because I think we're all committed to the same goals for the town and just enjoy hearing from each other. So as long as we're still doing that, we'll be okay moving ahead. I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Okay, I was gonna say it. And all in favor? Aye. Okay, good night. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Tracy.